Kyle Chin, the former Jamaican Middleweight RFL champion. Kyle, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So, Kyle, how did you get involved in MMA? Well, how do you get involved in the martial arts, first and foremost?
Well, basically, I mean, I'm just like every other Jamaican boy pitney. You know, I used to love watching the Kung Fu movies and watching, Bruce Lee. And I mean, I especially when I was growing up, it was all about Bruce Lee. It was all about Shaolin Temple. I mean, Jackie Chan came a little later, and then, Jet Li and all these things. But, the action films had a huge influence on my childhood. And, I did karate when I was very, very young. Didn't stay in it very long because my sister quit, so I quit. Just was following crowd. And then, went on to do other sports, but was always had a love affair with martial arts, and, used to play fight all the time, and even during high school and thing, had a whole heap of black belt friends, guys who did karate and thing. I used to spar all the time, you know what I mean? So,
oh, with them?
Yeah, man. I used to spar all the time and whole heap of play fighting and them things. So it was always a passion, even when I wasn't doing it formally, like actively, doing formal instruction.
Okay, so that's your introduction to martial arts itself. But how did that translate to MMA?
Yeah, great question. So basically what happened was I started, training at Wing Lung at the time, which was Kung Fu. Because, in Jamaica, everything is like, it's karate or taekwondo.
Yes,
that was kind of what it was in Jamaica, Karate, as them say.
Yeah.
And, I'm Chinese. And it's funny because all of the influences, like all the movies we were watching, all of the, the guys we were watching and who we kind of idolized as our heroes, and the things that Jamaicans love, the Jap anime, Dragon Ball Z, like, well, not Jap anime, but like, it was a lot of Chinese influence. It was actually Kung Fu.
Yes.
So I had some friends who did Kung Fu, and I thought it was cool that it was different and everything there. So started doing the Kung Fu, and now this is like, I think I started doing Kung Fu at like 28, 29.
28,
didn't do it very long before I realized that the Chinese kickboxing was far more like to the point. It was like
direct,
effectively fighting, you know what I mean? It was kickboxing, like you're trying to knock out, and you know what I mean? As opposed to Kung Fu, which is much more about like traditional movements, And then
when you said Chinese kickboxing, you're speaking directly about Sanda, right?
Sanda.
Yeah. Okay.
Sanshou, depending if you're talking Mandarin or Cantonese. So Sanda was like, that was the thing. So I actually got sick shortly after I started, like maybe like about six months to a year after I started.
Yes.
I got sick. This was in 2012. And basically I was in and out of hospital. Lost all the muscle mass in my legs.
What?
They couldn't figure out what it was, It turned out to be this rare disease called Still's disease, an even more rare form, which is the adult onset Still's disease, because it's usually manifests in children. And basically, it's like an autoimmune, auto-inflammatory disease that comes with like basically rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
So it really like attacked my lower body, so like my waist down, like lost muscle mass in my legs. I couldn't really walk very well. I was very, very weak. I had to use, walking stick and all these things. But once they, started to treat me and thing, I started to, go back to martial arts, and that was kind of like my rehab, my physiotherapy and my rehab was.
But wouldn't that inflame it even more?
No, well, I started slow, bro. Like, I used to sit down and work out. Like, I'd sit down and do the rope, so I'm sitting down.
Oh.
Yeah, man. I just started slow and just came up, you know what I mean? And was really just working on strengthening and getting back. But I was on medication by this time, so, it was easier to, like... So it took me about 6 months to recover. And then you know, while I'm doing that and I'm getting stronger and feeling better and thing, like my instructor, my Sifu Matthew All, decided, you know, we're going to do a kickboxing tournament.
Okay.
Like, as an attachment to one of the karate tournaments that they were having, or martial arts opens that they were having. They would do a segment just for Chinese kickboxing. And, you know, he was saying, you know, Kylie, want to do it? I said, you think I could do that? Because I was like, my meds is like, I'm just trying to recover. I'm just trying to get stronger at this point, you know? So I'm saying, yeah, I think you can enter. So train towards that. And I've always been the kind of guy to like, anything that I like, I go all into it, you know what I mean? So I was trained up, and then competition came around. I ended up winning the tournament.
Whoa.
Yeah, much to my own surprise, you know what I mean? And then you know, a fight came up shortly after that, and I went on to win that fight as well. So like, you know, it just kind of started me in. So how we got to MMA is that, so time had passed and I was just training, working on the kickboxing. But we also used to do grappling and stuff like that, and wrestling, a little bit of wrestling. But Sunday itself involves takedowns, right? So it's takedown, you take down the person and then they can get up and then you kickbox again. And once you get the chance, you take down the person again and you get points for that, you know?
Okay.
We're not allowed to strike them on the floor or anything like that. So some time had passed, and I remember one day I was sparring with Devon Concrete Moncrief, who is you know, former contender winner, all that. And we're doing some boxing sparring, and like after we're done, you know, and thing, after them done beat me up, him said to me, "So Kyle, when last you fight?"
Yeah.
I was like, boy, you know, so it's been like a year or two, and the man start laugh after me, you know. The man bust out a laugh, and I was like, wait. I started feeling like a shame, and I was like, damn, boy, fighters fight, you know what I mean? You can't say you're a fighter, you're not a fight, you know? So
yeah.
I was like, all right, you know, let me actively go look about this fighting thing. And by this time, I really knew that there was MMA available.
Yes.
In the Caribbean, not in Jamaica so much, but in the Caribbean. And I'd known Jamaican fighters like Robert Danger McCarthy, who had gone out there and, you know, was actively fighting. So there's a big league in Trinidad, and I said, all right, have my eyes set on that. And like I did a little video, kind of like a video present, like a proposal, you know, kind of marketing myself, because my profession is film. So I edited together a little presentation with all my kickboxing fights, and, you know, kind of like reached out to sponsors, and, you know, fortunately got some sponsorship from Boom to go over to Trinidad to fight in CUF, which was the Caribbean Ultimate Fist Fighting Champs.
Yes.
And had a great debut, you know, suplex the brother and choke him out, and, you know, in the first round. So was well on my way, and that's basically how it started. You know?
But how was that feeling? Like like going over to Trinidad, was the nerves high?
Oh man, of course. Yeah. Of course. Okay. Luckily, I have a lot of friends in Trinidad.
That was on the amateur level, right?
This is amateur, yeah. This is amateur. And I mean, no, I had traveled for sport before. Like, I've been traveling for sport since I was like 12. You know what I mean? So, but always with a team. So this is the first time I'm traveling
alone,
completely by myself, to go to the foreign country to fight another person from that country.
Yeah.
And, you know, you kind of build up these things in your mind. You feel like, all right, it's fighting, so maybe everybody's going to have animosity and be like,
yeah,
yo, what you do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? But like,
home turf and
kind of intimidation and all these things.
Yeah.
It's funny because I remember the day we landed and like we reached. I was driving from the airport, and they were like, yo, we're going to stop and do a TV interview. So we pull over the TV interview, and I see my opponent roll up, and like I see his coach come up to me and him hail me, and this is probably the biggest mistake a coach can ever make. But the coach comes and him go hail me up and say, yo, you done? Well, go on, Kyle. And say, you have to get easy on my boy.
Oh my god.
He said that, and I was like, okay. And I laughed it off, and I was like, yo, don't know what heal up him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, but that, like, I've never forgotten that, because like, who does that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But by this time, and I mean, you really, especially at this stage, you really have no idea what you're gonna face. There's not enough video footage for it to like start to know kind of like what your opponent's style is, anything like that. But I had seen some of the training that the team did. You know what I mean? And I wasn't too impressed. Like, I know that my Sifu's training, like the level of competency is really high. So, you know, did the interview, and I mean, it was nerve-wracking, but I just had to just kind of stay with, and I knew from doing the tournaments, like the kickboxing tournaments that I did, like I used to do a lot of like visualization and like self-reassurance. Like I'd record myself saying certain things to myself, like just motivating myself and kind of, you know, talking about this visualizing. So I would say things like, you will be faster, you will be stronger, you will see the punches coming, you are not afraid, you know, these kind of things. And I put a soundtrack to it and everything, and I'd have it on my phone, and I'd have the earbuds in, and whenever I felt a little bit of nervousness, especially at night when your mind starts to go, have that in my ears, and I would just keep playing it. You know what I mean?
So what the result? What was the result? Like a knockout?
It was a rear naked choke.
Oh, rear naked choke. Okay.
Yeah. So we're up against the cage, and him lands some illegal strike to my head back. My fault, because my head was in a bad position, but also the ref could have stopped him. But anyway, got into a right position, got behind him, suplexed, and as soon as he touched ground, he was a little disoriented. So I just got up, grabbed the neck, and him tap out.
That's great. So how did all that transition now to the RFL? How did that?
So, I mean, after 3 more amateur fights, the guy who was doing RFL, so Radcliffe Damage Cunningham is a brother who used to do Kung Fu. So he's a black section Kung Fu, so he used to train where I trained, which is now Iron Lotus Academy. And he kind of partnered with this guy, Andrew Mullings, who wanted to put on this event. And so they reached out. By this time I was getting some attention from people. Like, people were aware that I was traveling, and I mean, really, I was one of the only people living in Jamaica who was consistently traveling and coming back to Jamaica, and had a good amount of reputation. Yeah, so I was getting a little attention and had a little reputation and thing. And I say this with all respect to the pioneers like Danger and Cleon Bardwell. I mean, and Matty Cohn, who were already, doing the thing. But most of them kind of trained abroad and stuff. But anyway, so when the event was happening, he reached out to me and said, we're gonna put on this event, and we're gonna do a belt. We're gonna have a championship, middleweight belt or whatever weight class you're fighting in, and you can fight for the title, the inaugural title. We'll make it an inaugural belt. So I was, by this time, not sure I wanted to go pro yet. Like, I wanted to have a couple more amateur fights, get some more experience before you go pro. But then he said, he would make it a pro belt. And really and truly, my goal was to I wanted to be a champion. I wanted to be a champion, and I wanted to have more than one belt. Like, really and truly, my goal when I started, I wanted more than one championship belt from like more than one organization. And I was looking at the Caribbean and all that. So I had already fought for a Caribbean champion. Well, it was a belt in Dam Rep. I had fought for an amateur belt in Dam Rep. And that was a fight I lost. But it was probably the best learning experience I've ever had.
Why?
Because you really don't, you learn the most when you know what I mean? it's really through suffering and adversity that you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a situation where the guy I was fighting was like a three-time Pan American gold medalist in Sambo.
Oh.
Which
like
is
Khabib sport.
Yeah, Khabib sport, right. And he was a really good wrestler. And in that fight, I just got gun shy. Because he was always focusing on the takedowns and trying to get me down, I was always my hands. Right, I was in front of the takedown, my hands. It's just that I wasn't striking enough. And I mean, I was far superior in striking. But just the way that he was able to affect my mind really was the best lesson. And then to say that I really could have beaten this dude. Like, it's not like I didn't have the tools to beat him, even with his wrestling and all that. So, that being said, they reached out. They they said, whatever. And I said, all right, let me do this. So won the belt. And the attention from that and that whole thing just kind of cascaded. And I said, well, this is a great thing. Like, if we really want to build MMA in Jamaica, there has to be events in Jamaica. Not everybody is going to be lucky enough to travel in an amateur situation.
Yes. Yeah.
And all of the young upcoming fighters who are training their ass off, if we have competition out here, competition is really the best way to move from strength to strength. And truth is, no matter how much you spar in a gym, when the lights come on and when the pressure is on, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Changes everything. So you go from being so sure of yourself to like
nervous.
being in a situation where you're scrutinized and trust me, like, no matter, like, almost always on game day, you're not full percentage of your capabilities. It takes the really talented and mentally strong guys to perform just as well as they do in the training room, which is why you'll hear them talking about this thing where them say, some guys are great in the gym.
Yeah, at sparring, they're knocking out everybody, but when they get into the fights, they just lose it.
When they get in the cage, there's something that doesn't click in that brain, and then they don't perform as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought that it was really, really important to help the organizations out here grow.
So, like, that feeling of becoming a champion, right? Like, that first feeling of, lifting the belt. Like, how was it? Like, that initial feeling. Like, you achieved your goal, right? That
it's truly it's unparalleled. And I've said it a lot of times, like, I don't think there are many sports that could really compare to the glory that you feel than in combat sports, than physically and mentally besting another human being who has trained and put energy towards mastering the feat of other human beings. Like, I don't think racket sports or football I don't think there's anything can really equal that. You know what I mean? Especially the individuality of it. Like, it's only you and him. It's just you and him there.
And whereas in boxing, it's just really just a striking. In MMA, you have to mix it up.
Even in boxing, like any combat sport.
Okay.
Like that raising the fist at the end, man. This is a powerful moment, much less especially to have. I mean, the belt really at that time didn't mean as much as maybe my last fight.
Yeah,
it meant a lot because I accomplished a goal. But I think it was just overcoming myself in the moment, and especially because that fight, it was a last minute replacement where the guy I was supposed to fight was coming from Trinidad, and then I think hurricane happened, and he didn't come because of hurricane. So like about 2 or 3 days before the fight, it got announced that him can't come. So I had to fight a brand new opponent who I had never seen. I don't know anything about this guy. It was a Taekwondo black belt who fights with Jamaica and everything there. So I was like, all right, let's know we have a lot of kicks. You know, let me see what we want. And
Alright, so that's going to move me to my next question. Going forward, we have seen where Jamaicans know, such as, well, Jason Jackson in Bellator, and the fact that he has already won like three different promotions, right, Jason? And then you have guys like Leon Edwards, Aljamain Sterling, right?
Aljo.
These guys are coming up now, but those guys are really overseas, right? And you have Randy, you know? But those guys really are overseas. And one of the things that I am worried about, especially in the local scene, is that we have some of the best strikers, right? But that's because we have a tradition of striking in terms of karate, taekwondo, boxing. And you know, we just get in judo recently, like some years ago. But I think one of the main deficits in Jamaican martial arts is really the grappling. Which is why when I see our fighters go overseas, like our new fighters, homegrown, they go overseas, and I've been watching some clips. And one of the first things I see when they lose is that they're not losing in striking. The guy just comes, grabs them, takes them down, beats them. Right? And it's almost like wrestling is that big factor that we're missing in Jamaica. Right?
Absolutely.
And you can't just like learn a few takedowns and then go and just start fight, because you know, like they said, like I think wrestling has the most success in the UFC, right? You see the guys from the NCAA, they go in and they just learn a little kickboxing and they're right up there with the best, right? Because
all you need is an overhand writing.
Exactly.
That's all he needs.
And some of these guys too have been doing wrestling from their 6 going up. So by the time they're like 20, they already have that, you know? And do you think a lack of wrestling culture or grappling culture is affecting our homegrown talent? Because in the striking, we already have it, and we can even see it through most of our guys coming from Jamaica. If you look on their background, it's really a karate background them having. A lot of them have a karate background, a strong karate background they have, and you can see it. Some of them, they started up with boxing or they did karate, but it is really striking, and then they learned the grappling. So going forward, what do you think is the solution to it?
Well, it's clear that, as you say, we need more grappling training. So grappling was probably my biggest asset, or the fact that I focused a lot on grappling and wrestling was. But I was fortunate again. When I just started, I had a really strong training partner. One particular guy who had done a lot of wrestling. So I was able to train with him with the grappling and the wrestling a lot. And then there was my wrestling coach. I actually had a wrestling coach. A guy named Kevin Wallen, who is here and is still actively, trying to get wrestling in the high schools and has done it for some years. Had it at Wolmer's for a little while. Had it at George's for a little while. And was trying to, actively is in the process of trying to get that off the ground and in a consistent way. So one is to get that going, right? But one man can't do it also. He's also training people to now train other people and things like that. The other thing is and then I would go train in Montego Bay with my friend Cassery Bulldog Cassels, who is another wrestler and was an American top team at one point. Very good fighter. Yeah, man. And now Cass is kind of spearheading grappling tournaments, like a movement to have regular grappling tournaments. So I won one the other day, actually, just fortunately. But it's 2 so far. I have another one coming up November 12th. And, this is like, what is going to make a huge difference is, competitions. Like I say, once you have competition, a team called Ruthless.
Yes.
Shine Blake, headed by Shine Blake, who is the amateur lightweight champion for RFL. And that's done by one Dennis Avenue. And he's also, you know, starting to incorporate more jiu-jitsu, BJJ. Yes. And the BJJ is coming from actually just fortunately. And we've always needed, and that gym has brought in Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts, actually Brazilians before, who tried to set up camp. And unfortunately, Trinidad have a franchise, a BJJ franchise, Gracie based. I know a couple of the islands have that too, but we don't. So we tend to outstrike them, but they tend to have the. And it's crazy that we don't have a BJJ black belt set up here somewhere.
Exactly.
But it hasn't happened yet, and that's what we're waiting on. There's a purple belt.
Yes.
Who's here for work from Canada and has been instructing and coaching down at Ruthless Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. Yes. So anybody link me and say them on the BJJ, I say, hey, head on down.
Yes.
My team has restarted doing grappling or formal MMA training, but with a heavy focus on grappling on a Tuesday night at Iron Lotus Academy.
Yes.
So the focus is coming back, and especially because there's competition, as they're starting to compete. So those guys from Montego Bay, and Cass is in Mobay, so his team is in Mobay, Hybrid Athletics, and they come up to Kingston and they bring a whole crew of people, and different camps come in and they compete. There's another camp, formerly Wushin Kindo Lion Pride, but let's just call it Lion Pride. I don't know, they used to be very active. There's Spanish Town MMA.
Yes.
Which is funny because most of the MMA fighters who you see in the UFC come from Spanish Town.
Spanish Town, yes.
So Spanish MMA headed by... Oh, it's gonna come back to me.
Yeah.
But they are also now, which is a part of MMA Jamaica Federation. You know, I know they focus on grappling sometimes, but they're more of a sambo focus. So their grappling will have a sambo.
But you know, even that, the sambo, I think is so good because the sambo incorporates the grappling in it, which is going to give you such a big advantage than just striking, you know?
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying is that I think that martial arts has a big opportunity, especially within the schools, because if you look on schoolboy football and the amount of fights that are starting out of indiscipline, right? I think we can also take it as an opportunity, whereas, you know, a lot of people love to play football and so on, but they have a desire to fight. They might not know it, but they have it in them, right?
Yeah,
and I think the martial arts can incorporate that discipline that has been missing, especially in schools.
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, even as saturated as the MMA world is, and it's much different than when even I started, but even as saturated as it is, there's still so many opportunities for young men and young women to find an actual career.
Yes.
So it's a lot easier to monetize than even football and them things in terms of, on a smaller scale for sure, but the opportunities are wider. Actually easier for fighters to kind of like get a window into the career.
Yes.
And they can start monetizing.
Yes.
We're not yet at the point in the Caribbean where there's a lot of money behind it and there's a lot of money to win.
Yes.
So, but there are opportunities. There's so many opportunities worldwide for fighters who are exceptional. And let's be honest, once it comes to sports, once it comes to entertainment, so that's sports, music, anything like that, you have to be exceptional to make good money.
True.
That's just across the board, you know what I mean?
But how do you see it from a professional level? A little boy wants to be an MMA fighter. How would you advise him in Jamaica to make that come true? Like, what would he have to do to get to, like, on UFC or a Bellator or 1FC? What would he have to do in Jamaica, that is?
So there's no one path, but I think what I would advise is join one of these camps that I've spoken about. If you can't join one of these camps, link somehow with a competent martial artist or a competent boxer or a competent, start training. Just start training. But I think it's very important to train under someone who is actually good. So you need to see either he's trained good fighters before, or he himself is a good fighter. Objectively good fighter, has accomplished something, right? The martial arts world is a very tricky world. There's a lot of mysticism, and mysticism and kind of like pedestalization that's involved in the martial arts world. So you have to be careful who you choose as a coach. You have to make sure that the coach is someone who is competent and someone who know what they're talking about. So, and it doesn't have to be that you start with full-on MMA. You could start with a discipline. You can start with your karate or whatever it is. I mean, I don't actually suggest karate for MMA personally.
Yeah, I understand, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I find that even you as a black belt in karate, you're starting from almost zero when you start to the MMA. Unfortunately, there just are more, and it's really about the way that they compete. Like when you compete in karate, the rules restrict too much.
Yes.
That apply in a real life situation. So things like boxing is the way they compete in boxing. You damn well know it's going to be effective in real life, right?
Yes.
So things like that, wrestling, BJJ.
But that's the thing, Kyle. Is all right. Someone wants to get into that, right? They want to get into the MMA world, but at the same time, there is hardly any gyms. Like you can say, okay, in Kingston, right? What about a person in Westmoreland? What about a person in like even the country areas?
Yeah, it is tricky, and that's the thing. Like you have to go where it is. I mean, Westmoreland, you have a guy doing Muay Thai teaching Muay Thai in Westmoreland, a really good Muay Thai guy. Can't remember his name right now. But if you look at Muay Thai in the grill, I think you'll find it.
Okay.
Same thing with Spanish Town MMA. Imran, oh my God.
Oh, Imran Hall.
Imran Hall, the Spanish Town MMA, who is a really good fighter too. So anyway, but wherever you are, do your research, find out what's close to you, find out what's available. That's the first thing, right? Then, and start whatever is available to you. I think that's important. Start with what's available to you. If nothing's available to you, or if you see something more effective that's available elsewhere, if you have the ability, go to where it's at. Right? So that's one. And then from there, start competing. From your lowest level, start competing in whatever you're training in.
Yeah.
Right? And then with MMA, I found that I had to go where it was at. So I had to go, oftentimes I'd have to either go to different kind of training, or I'd invite them to where I was.
Yeah.
But I always sought it out.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Like I always sought it out. I sought out different sparring partners. I sought out different kind of instruction.
Yeah.
Right. And that's very important. You have to be very proactive. In the whole thing. So if you want to do this thing, you can't sit there and say, boy, one day I want to do MMA. Because first of all, it's a young man's sport. So the longer you wait, saying, I want to do this one day, is less likely you're going to be able to do it. So just find something somewhere that's accessible and do what you can do. Start your training, start your education. Right? There's a lot of information online as well. So I know plenty of people who started with just watching YouTube and then I'm bridging and say, oh, come and try this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what happens is when they start to train, get the formal training, a lot of the time them don't have it quite down, but they're close.
Yeah.
So you just like a tweaking.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, instead of putting your hand like this, put your hand like this. Instead of, moving your leg like this, move your leg like this. So it just becomes tweaking. But your mind is already in a place, So, on that note, in regards to coaching now, right? Especially, you spoke about sambo, you spoke about wrestling.
let's say someone wants to be a coach in regards to wrestling or sambo. How do they go about that? Because it's the coaching that's really going to, you know, I believe that would take it to the next level as well.
And the thing is, you can't be a coach unless you've mastered the sport.
Yeah, true.
Or at least become very competent in the sport. So I think, but once you are competent in the sport, then you can start coaching.
Yeah.
Especially when I started, there was a lot of people, a lot of blind leading the blind going on.
Oh, okay.
You know, especially in the like that same guy who I fought in Trinidad.
Yeah.
You know, those guys were great on the striking. But you know, when I saw some of the things they were teaching them in the grappling training, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about MMA is that everything will come to light eventually, right? Especially in the fight.
No,
yes.
Hey, you don't get more real. You know what I mean? This is when it's combat sports. It's reality. Well, I should say professional combat sports, because if the rule sets are too heavy, too restrictive, then we've taken away the reality.
Yeah.
But the more we take away the rules and the restrictions, is the closer to reality we get. So
true.
Things reveal themselves.
Do you believe then, in regards to, because we see sports in Jamaica, I think probably the most is like successful, it would be track and field, especially making a profit off of that. We see it in champs and we see it at the national championships. How close do you think that MMA can become in regards to generating revenue? Like someone wants to create a MMA promotion for themselves, you know, start a new. Do you think it's profitable? Because when I was looking at the RFL, one of the things that I saw that they did well is that they have after parties afterwards, right? So that's attractive to people who, alright, you don't know much about fighting, you come watch a fight, afterwards you have a party. Like, do you think it's profitable? Like MMA promotion?
That is the one thing with MMA. It's so much more profitable than plenty of the other sports outside of Big Three. Alright, so Big Three being, you know, cricket, football, track.
Okay.
If you put on an MMA event and you have 6 amateur fights on the fight, because the truth is we need amateur fights.
Yes.
We can't have amateur fights.
Yeah.
So you have 6 amateur fights on the thing and then 2 professional fights.
Yeah. That
means you're paying four fighters. Right?
Okay.
And then you put the other things into place. Now, with just like any other sporting event, you need medics, you need referee, you need, and in this case, 1 referee, right? Or 2 to run the entire night. You need judges, you need security, and then you're making money off of the bar, because MMA events are like the party. They are the party.
Yes.
So while you're at the event, you have bar going, people are buying drinks. You can have a situation where people are buying food. You have, you know, you're gonna get an MC, and a really good MMA has a good MC.
Yes.
Really good MMA event has a good MC. You might have a couple commentators, right? And these are your expenses. But your revenue is going to be your gate. Your revenue is going to be your bar. Your revenue can be merchandise. Your revenue is going to be sponsorship. So there is great earning potential behind putting on these events. Your location is going to play a big part, and that is going to be one of your biggest expenses. But obviously, location leads to your greater profit. You know, if it's a good location. So it's super feasible, super beneficial, especially if you're a good promoter. If you're a good promoter and know how to market this thing, of course, marketing is the part. But if you're a good promoter and you know a lot of people, you know how to market things, you're gonna do well.
Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, from a corporate standpoint, right? You would need that backing initially, maybe, like that private sector funding, I'm guessing, right?
Sure.
But it's also a very attractive sport, as you're saying, the fastest growing, right? So
people love fights, bro. People love fights. As Dina White says, if you're at a football match and a fight broke out, everybody's
going to the fight. So
you know what I mean? That's the thing.
So this sport probably definitely has the potential in the future in Jamaica to blow up then.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And especially if we get more, once the sport grows, the more the sport grows and we have competent fighters, whether we're bringing in fighters, whatever the situation is, even if it's not just Kingston, all the fighters coming from, and we have more fighters coming in from the rest of the island, and we just have more and more competition growing, then and if we learn how to build up a fight,
yes,
you know, with all of the fight promotion that you see with that's the difference between fighting and these other sports, you know. You don't have that kind of build up when you're thinking about two football teams or whatever it is. The way you build up a rivalry for fights is kind of unique to combat sports. When you're thinking about boxing and then doing, you know, the fight camp build up or embedded for UFC or whatever, it's the stories and it's the possibility of this matchup. We're in the world we are now, where we have YouTubers fighting YouTubers and things like that. Yeah. What's interesting and intriguing to people is the possibility. We have no idea what's going to happen. Even no matter how good you know these two guys are, you really don't know how things are going to turn out. You know what I mean? Even if they have a reputation, they fought so and so. The whole point is to have good matchmaking where people are like in that mystery. Yeah. You know, especially add a little animosity to it. Yeah, add a little vibes to it. It's huge potential. We had Contender.
Yeah, big. That was so successful.
Especially the early years of Contender. Contender was huge. And they didn't even care about attendance, really.
Yeah.
The ticket prices to go
Everybody in Jamaica knew about Contender. That's the crazy part.
It was the #1 TV show at one point.
Yeah. I anticipated, like every Wednesday, I think, I couldn't wait to watch it.
And even with Contender, when you think about it, they didn't have great story lead up. Like, there was no real rivalries built into these two guys who were going to fight on this day or whatever. For the most part, like, it was, and the ones that they did have, like when Iron Dog start, you know, everybody's like, oh, this guy's a personality.
Yeah,
you know? Nobody had any idea what this man could do in the ring. And him going to the ring and him can't fight one lick.
Because, and I feel like also the Jamaicans, they're natural promoters, you know, like especially some of the fighters, they'll do it themselves. Exactly, because like unlike a lot of the US fighters, like in the leagues, you know, they're very boring in a way in terms of their personality, but they can fight. But like our Jamaicans, a lot of them, they just have the personality, right? Which is leading to my one of my final points is in regards to exporting talent, right? We see it in football where a lot of our Premier League players go overseas, different countries in Europe. We have different promotions like the ones that Uriah Hall, Ring of Combat, PUMA in England, right? How do you believe that, like, for example, the RFL can make connections in those countries where we have our local fighters, you know, going into those promotions, right? So they're in Jamaica and them can actually there's a pathway for them now to go overseas on the international stage and actually build up a record so that them can probably be on like Dana White's Contender series.
Absolutely. I think it does boil down to sports management. It does boil down to making connections. RFL has already begun to make connections with Canada. Has started that kind of, you know, partnership. So there are all kinds of doors that can be opened. It just takes people, first of all, to have the initiative and have that willpower to say, all right, I'm gonna set this up. Hey, the sport is lacking sport agents. There's so many opportunities for people who want to take it on and people who are competent and good at that stuff. Sport agents, managers are really what we need to kind of make those connections. You know what I mean? So you have, like I say, if RFL is now doing that, setting up that link between Canada and here now with certain fighters. Somebody can do that with the US. Somebody can do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the US and so on. Then, you know, it's gonna lead to more and more exploitation of fighters, more and more exchange. And really and truly what we need, what a lot of fighters would have to do, I mean, if they want to get serious right away, is to get involved with a fight camp abroad. Our Jamaican fighters will go up to New York and link with Randy. Randy Brown will take them in and train with them and, you know, invite them in if they're showing promise and they show initiative and so on. And it happens all the time. So Matthew Cahoon, you know, who is very serious about his journey and who's gone to camps in Colombia and live in Colombia for a while and then go live in New York for a while and live in LA for a while. That's kind of what it takes right now, you know what I mean? But you have to, and there are ways to do it, because you can go and live in a gym and then the gym trains you, you clean up the gym, you sleep there, like they have bunks, you sleep there. And then what happens is that they manage you basically, and then they take a certain amount out of your purse. But what you're doing is that you're building up your experience. You're building up your experience, you're building up your skill set, of course, because now you're getting proper training, you're getting proper training partners. And really, we can't go around the fact that there's going to be more of these guys, more proper training available once you go to certain big cities and so on. And that's an important gap to bridge. So a big part of bridging those gaps and exporting our fighters is through the promotions and through past fighters and through current fighters who are involved abroad.
In terms of exporting and so on, you know, one of the reasons I asked that is because as the UFC grows, you know, they're going all over the world. They're thinking about going to Africa next. You know, they have been in Central America, and I believe that one of the next stops for them could be the Caribbean. You know, they could probably open a big center in the Caribbean, so we never know. Right?
Not for now. Not for now.
Not for now.
No, the Caribbean is too small. Like the countries are too small. If they open something in the Caribbean, it's going to be downright. It's going to be something with a bigger population. You know what I mean? They need like 10 million people in one place. Like.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be for now. It wouldn't be for now. We have to do it. Like, we have to go and just build up our fighters. Like, the great thing about it is that our Jamaican fighters are at the top of the heap right now. Like, Jamaican top of the heap. You know what I mean? Leon Edwards, Jamaican born, Spanish Town born, top of the heap. So, but as we know, Aljamain was New York, Leon Edwards was England, you know, UK. So, as we connect with these guys, and the great thing is they've shown interest. You know what I mean? Aljamain represents us hard, has shown great interest. You know, and I think that article came out the other day about Leon, you know, possibly wanting to, you know, do some work down here. Randy Brown has great interest. Randy Brown has great interest in doing things here. So, and I really want to appeal to those guys and to the people who can see the opportunities, because let me tell you something. A big part of our potential lies in the fact that everybody want to come Jamaica. The Jamaica brand big, as you know, so people want to come and spend a vacation and teach martial arts, sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can facilitate that, they'll come through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So use the whole package in terms of Jamaica to attract. I see.
Sure.
Final question from me. What's your favorite martial art? Because I know you do Sambo and so on, but like, which one do you love doing?
I've gotten so much more into the wrestling and the BJJ. I just find it's all very crucial altogether. I have to say, I don't know, man. It's so hard to like pick out one thing. I love kickboxing.
What about the judo though? Because what about the judo? Because I heard that they have judo up in Portmore.
Yeah, I'm not big on judo though. Like I'm not big on judo. I find I'm more of a wrestling BJJ. kickboxing.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of that's my flex.
So you like the BJJ more?
I love boxing too. Like I love boxing. Definitely love boxing.
Because it's of its directness?
Absolutely. Because of the efficiency of it. So boxers spent centuries, literally, perfecting the efficiency of a punch and the efficiency of moving out of the way a punch and blocking a punch. And I think they got it right. Like they've gotten it right. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a whole heap of things left to fix up. They've gotten it right. But I do love Dutch style kickboxing, especially, which it's kickboxing that focuses more on the punches, you know, like, but you know, a lot of heavy leg kicks and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I maybe I'll say kickboxing is probably.
But on that note, Kyle, like, because I do know that there's a great interest in fighting in general, right? And as I was saying, from a business perspective, you know, there is the need, you know, everyone loves fights, but a large proportion of the island doesn't really have, you know, even the basic gyms and so on. And since you're in Kingston, right? And you know, you're there in terms of, you have Chinese kickboxing, you have the jiu-jitsu, its elementary stages, you have various, you know, you have kung fu and so on. Do you believe that in the future that probably you or your friends and your associates will come in the various parishes and probably set up businesses? And
I think it's definitely possible. Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, I want to help in the development of the sport in some way. I don't know what avenue that's going to take right now. It might be promotion before anything else.
Okay.
I will always be helping fighters in terms of like training and stuff like that, and coaching and getting ready for stuff, especially once they reach out. But on a large scale, I don't think I'll be coaching.
Okay.
Yet. Not right now. So yeah, I mean, at some point, I think it's a definite possibility that I'll be doing something like, you know, spreading out, setting up things in other parishes for sure.
All right. On that note, thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for talking about MMA. I think it's important. I think it's definitely one of the growing sports, and I think there's a lot of opportunities here. So I appreciate
you're one of the biggest pioneers in it, you know, in terms of the fight, you know. So I appreciate it. Until next time, Kyle.
Respect.
Remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon for your notifications. Like, comment and share for more fantastic videos.